drives you? What inspires you? Let's ignite your why. Welcome back to Ignite Your Why podcast. I'm your host, Austin T. Gullett, and we're here to have genuine conversations with authentic people to help amplify their voice and figure out what ignites their why. Today's guest is a freelance photographer and videographer who is the co-owner of 1284 Studios. He was born and raised in Covington, Kentucky, and if you're from Northern Kentucky, I'm sure you see him around taking some flicks at some athletic events. So let's give a warm welcome to my friend, Ryan Luster. Ryan, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm good. I feel like I don't know what day it is because I've been off this entire week. So my days are all mixed up.
That's a true Hollywood story, right? Or holiday story, not Hollywood. Holiday story.
I know I am not looking forward to going back to work. Um, I think that's the worst part. Like you get the new year, so happy new year to whoever's listening. But it's also just going back to work is just like after having almost 2 weeks off, you're just like,
The holiday hangover for sure.
I know, but I go back in full swing. Like we have basketball games and like it's like never ending.
Well, I'm the same way. It's like this moment, January to March, is insane.
Hey, that's the best time though. Like basketball's picking up. You're getting more competitive games. In
Yeah,
Cincinnati, they're in conference play, so it's pretty intense.
yeah, I agree.
So with that being said, man, let's just hop straight into this. So what is your story?
Man, so as you said, I was born and raised in Covington, Kentucky. Kind of lived everywhere down there. I feel like almost kind of how everybody else does. We bounce around from hood to hood type thing. But grew up in a single mother home. I know you know my mother. Got to watch her, just be the best mom who could ever be, and that's where I got a lot of my drive from. And got to really build a really good relationship with my sisters through that. But growing up, went to fourth district, which is going to show my age because that's no longer a thing. Then went over to Latonia, eventually went to Holmes, and then ended up graduating from Ryle. But throughout that stint, to kind of tie in what I do now, played every sport you could ever imagine, which I also think in Covington you do, especially if you went to the Boys and Girls Club. Um, but yeah, I mean, had a really good foundation through sports, got to see a lot of stuff, got to have a lot of experiences through that, and really just kind of navigated life through sports for the longest time. Ended up graduating, like I said, from Ryle, which was a really cool experience, but then also went on to play college football at Mount Union. Went there for 2 years roughly, and then came back home to help my mom, where my youngest sister, she was actually born with she basically has had to have 3 open heart surgeries. So that kind of put everything to a halt as far as my personal goals, because I ended up coming back home and helping my mom out. She was not able to work. So did that, let go of the dream of wanting to make it as a professional athlete, which is fine, but it took me a while to kind of get with that situation and really understand that it was done. Joined the workforce, kind of bounced around from job to job, finally got into some retail management stuff, had some success with that. And then really from there, I've kind of just been a freelancer. I don't know if I'm jumping ahead too much, but definitely had a really good childhood. So many different experiences playing AAU. A lot of people know the Northern Kentucky Tar Heels. That's who I played with growing up for AAU, bounced around with that. So just really was lucky for a lot of the experiences that I had growing up, and that came through sports.
Hey, I'm right there with you. I think growing up in Covington is a very unique experience. I guess I could say that. I feel an outlet for a lot of our kids and a lot of our youth is sports. And it's crazy how that all kind of plays a role into things. But kind of want to touch on a one question here before we talk about sports because I feel like we can talk about that a lot. Um,
All day long.
but like my question for you is just from growing up in Covington and going through the Covington school system and then transferring out to Ryle, what was that like for you? Because I know the culture is completely different. So how did you kind of adjust to that?
I'll be honest, it was a little bit of an adjustment. My grandparents lived in Union, so that kind of helped. I knew some people,
Hmm.
but as far as the culture, totally different, obviously. But I will say a lot of people don't understand just how diverse Holmes really is. So going from such a diverse surrounding, plus those are kids that I grew up with, and I have lifelong friends that I'll have forever, as I'm sure you do as well. And you know, I truly, it's not a lie. Once a bulldog, always a bulldog, and Holmes is truly who I am. Like on my Letterman jacket at Ryle, I had my Holmes letter that I had on there. So it's always something that was Covington is always somewhere that's near and dear to my heart. But when I went out to Ryle, like I said, it was good because I played sports. If I didn't play sports, I don't think the dynamic would have
Hmm.
been the same. To no surprise, I dealt with racial stuff, and that was a little bit different. But one thing that we can kind of talk about later on is the not necessarily struggle, but the the way that society sees biracial people. It almost felt like for a long time I had to pick a side. And I tell people all the time when I lived in Covington, I was the whitest black person. When I go out to Ryle, I'm the blackest white person. So it's just one of those things where I feel like in time there's going to be a lot of conversations about
Hmm.
biracial people and how we are looked at and perceived, and it's not necessarily an acceptance thing, but it is an issue that I feel like will be talked about a lot, especially with I feel like we're kind of rising as biracial people. As crazy as that seems, because it seemed when we were growing up it was a thing, but it's definitely a lot more prominent now. So yeah, just dealing with that and understanding that figuring out who you are was just kind of crazy growing up in that sense, going from two different
Yeah.
cultures, literally two different cultures. I think at Ryle, we had a specific time because so many kids farmed. We had a different time frame. It was crazy.
I can only imagine. I just think back to like my high school experience, and I think if my parents would have moved me to a different school, because they did talk about it. It's just our biggest thing was is I had no way home. My parents my parents could get me there. It's just my parents worked until 4 or 5 o'clock, and I didn't have a way home. And my parents are kind of people where they don't want to like rely on other people to have me go to their house every single day. And it's just those things. And I'm very grateful that I went to Holmes. I'm grateful that I had that experience. I feel like I'm a bulldog through and through. Happy to be
Yeah,
back there coaching now, but
yeah,
it's
that's
definitely
incredible too.
I can't even imagine just like going somewhere else because I feel my life would be completely different. I wouldn't have met the people I've met. I wouldn't have the experiences I have today. And you always think about the what ifs in life. It's like if this would have happened, or what if we would have did this, and you'll never know those answers, and you can always get stuck on them. Just thinking of what it could possibly be. But I think it's
Yeah.
interesting how you said you played sports your entire life, and then you had this big event happen in your family. And obviously, I feel like always family comes first, and sometimes we have to make those difficult decisions. Curious for you is how did you handle the process of finding your identity outside of sports? Because I feel like as athletes, a lot of the time we identify with those sports and that's all we're known for. And then once they're gone, we're just like, who the fuck am I?
So it's funny you say that because man, for a long time, like I'll say in my retail background, I want to say that I was very successful because of my sports background and just being so competitive. That was my new game. having
Mhm.
a sales goal to hit or something along those lines, it really drives you. And then also, being a part of a team and actually being a leader of a team, it really helped with that because I was kind of like a silent leader, I guess you could say, when I played. I was never very vocal, but it's only because we had other people who did that. I just kind of played my role and made sure that I did what was asked of me. But then in my older age, when I kind of found my own voice, that's kind of where I learned what being a real leader is, and just keeping that competitive nature that we carry with sports really helped me kind of mold my leadership skills through that. But then to move forward, and you can definitely relate to this, I got into coaching, which set off an entirely new fire under my ass. And really, I was in the inner city
Mhm.
schools as well, and just understanding how to get the best out of those kids. There's probably I could have went back to Rio, or I could have went to a big school, but really being at one of those small inner city schools and really connecting with those kids and seeing them be successful, um, that was more fulfilling than playing in the state championship that I played. Even if we won 2 games, those 2 games were celebrated more than I think I've ever celebrated more. And being a coach, I'm sure you're probably better at this than I am, but you still get to talk shit and all that, and that's really where I love this being able to teach these kids, really how to play the game, but then how they execute it. And when they do execute it, it's a joy, man. I fell in love with coaching, and the only reason I stepped away is because of the schedule.
It's very
Obviously,
rigorous.
we've talked about crazy, and we've talked about this. It's 98% not about the money until it is about the money, and that's what's unfortunate, especially when you're pouring so much into these
Mhm.
kids. And I know how you are. You're a lot like me. Is you want to pour in so much to these kids, and I feel like now ththese kids need it more than ever. Um, you
100%.
know, they
100%.
deal with so much stuff. I can remember when we thought we were dealing with stuff, and what did we really have to worry about compared to what these kids do? Like,
It's
I love that
insane.
your
Yeah, it is
your
insane.
conversations about mental health are so important, and I love that it's to the forefront because, again, sports don't have the same emphasis, but it's so beneficial to make sure that these kids have some kind of outlet, especially when you're in a position like you are and like I was when I was in these inner city schools. I mean, you just deal with some of the craziest things, kids not eating, and you have no
Mhm.
idea. There's homeless kids, and that's where I got my identity outside of playing, is really pouring myself into these kids and letting them know that it doesn't matter what time of day, call me, please let me know, like I'll be there for you. And it kills me every day that I'm not a part of that anymore, but I still am in a way with what I'm
Mhm.
doing.
You had that impact, and I think that's the biggest thing, and I tell people all the time is when I'm coaching, it's not about wins and losses for me. Wins and losses, they come, they go. But it's more so about me if I'm teaching them to be better men. Are they playing with honor, pride, and integrity? That's the biggest thing for me. And yes, there's been growth in the home soccer program. And my dad literally came up to me yesterday, honestly, and he was talking to one of his friends, and he said, home sports are not what they used to be. I feel like a lot of people know that. And he was like, but over the past few years, there's one team that really stood out of like growing, and that's the boys soccer team. And when he told me that, I was like, you feel like that sense of joy and that sense of pride. And I think back to this past season we had, and I think of the growth we had, and I think of we gave up less goals, we scored more goals, we held Covcath 2-0 at halftime in the district tournament, and they only scored off of a penalty kick and a free kick. So it's like those are things where in the past, like that's not happening. Like we would have been 10-0 in the first half in the past. And it's just when you think of it, it's like I don't do it for the money, obviously, because we don't get paid a ton, but it's more so just giving these kids an outlet. Like I had a player the other night text me at like two 2 in the morning and he's like, "Are you up?" I'm like, yes. And he was just like, I need advice. And he was just talking to me about like one of his girlfriends and just like what he should do. And I'm just like, listen, like you're at that age where like things are complicated, feelings suck and like they hurt, but you also have to own up to your mistakes. And it's just how do you move forward? And I think that's my approach. When I coach, I don't have like this yelling demeanor. I feel like you saw that when I was like when you came to one of my games is I don't like to yell and I don't see the purpose in yelling. Sometimes it's necessary, but it doesn't truly get your point across because I feel like if you make a mistake, um, the only way you're going to correct it is by me giving you constructive criticism. And for me, that's more so saying like, hey, like I see what you're trying to do here. You have the right idea, but instead of doing it this way, let's try it this way and see what happens. Because when you redirect them in that sense, one, you're giving them the confidence of saying like, hey, like you see me, you see what I'm trying to do, but you're also giving them the steps and the tools to be successful the next time. Because when I played sports, I was always yelled at. So I try to make it a little bit different for these kids. And I just want to give them kind of a safe space. So it's something I could talk about for hours, I feel like.
Oh yeah. Well, that's really the same style that I had, and it's honestly more impactful because you get to a point where or I'm sorry, they know if you're getting loud that they really messed up, and
Hmm.
then it got to the point where I would just give them a look. I'd be like, "Come on, man," and they're like, "You're right, you're right." But I think that people our age, we connect to them a little bit better than some of these coaches. And you can't yell at them now because they'll just shut down,
Hmm.
and then you don't even have anything. And that's one of the things. Like when I came to one of your games, I definitely wanted to tell you, like, seeing that they competed the entire game is huge. And people don't understand. If you've never dealt with a small school where, a lot of kids, if things don't go their way, they just shut down, the fact that you got them to compete the entire game and still had fun in a loss is huge. And you should definitely get your flowers for that. And that's something that you should definitely be proud of.
I think you came to the Holy Cross game, did you not?
I did, yeah.
I know that game. Ah, the game. We were in it. We were in it.
No,
We were in
I
it
know.
that first half, and then one of our starting defenders got hurt, and then they scored with 30 seconds left, and I was like,
Yep.
"Ugh." It was
Yeah.
frustrating.
But the beautiful thing in a loss is, you get to learn so much from that. And that's honestly one of the biggest things that I would tell my kids. We can win all the time, and obviously that's the goal ultimately. But you don't learn much from wins. You really build
Mhm.
your character and truly learn through your losses, and kind of correlating into your coaching style. That is a direct correlation to life. If you just dwell on losing all the time, you're going to be a loser. And that's you don't progress in life if you dwell on losses. You only learn from them. And once you figure that out, it's kind of like an epiphany. And I had that too. I used to be like, I just wanted to win. And quite honestly, that's one of the biggest appeals to me to move to Rio. We won. I mean,
Yeah.
especially in football. And I think that, and this is our ADHD thing going, but I truly feel like when I was at Holmes at the time we had some of the best athletes, but we just didn't have the best direction in a sense.
Mhm.
We had good coaches, but we relied on our athletic ability a lot. When I moved to Ryle, I left there in my sophomore year, and the mindset that they had was just totally different. And it was an expectation of being better and winning. Now, it might have been unhealthy at some point because it was the expectation, but I knew when my playing days were over and I wanted to get into coaching, I was going to instill that winning mindset into the kids that I wanted to get back because I always knew, it was either I was going to either coach. I didn't want to necessarily be at a big school. I wanted to make an impact at a
Mhm.
small school and really have a better relationship. And once I did that, just kind of try to instill, again, like you said, not just in sports on the field, on the court, whatever, but just giving them the mindset, letting them see that you can be successful even if you come from Covington. And I love the amount of us that are doing that and really connecting with these kids and being, having a platform like you have, having a platform like I have. Um, kids we know, people we know are just doing some great things. We have people might not even know this because they're a little bit older, but I know you do. We have two brothers that work for Jordan Brand. Like,
Hmm.
they came from Covington, walked those same homes, same hallways as some of these kids, and just really understanding, like, it really doesn't matter where you're from. They always used to say, "Don't be a statistic of your environment," and that's very true. You don't have to be. It's just really, like you said, it's surrounding yourself with the right people and really understanding what your purpose is.
I tell people all the time, where I'm from does not define who I am. It just plays a
Mm-mm.
little piece of my story because I feel like I've gained so much from growing up in Covington, but I know I'm much more than that. Like, yes, I take pride
Mm-mm.
in being from Covington. I love having people from Covington on this podcast because I feel like it shows people that it is possible. And I think that's why I went back to coaches because I was like, I was you at one point. Like I was in your shoes. Like I did this. And if I can do it, like so can you. And I think that's the biggest thing is just I think so many people get caught up on being stuck in Covington and people think they have to like move to make it out, and some people do, like that's for them. But it's also like you said, it's who do you surround yourself with. It's that mentality. For me, I've always wanted to be the best. I've always wanted to prove people wrong, and it's always like pushed me to become a better version of myself. And it's just interesting when people are just like, oh, like I need to get out of Covington, like there's nothing here for me. But is there, like,
Cool,
like go
cool.
ahead.
That's gonna make it a lot easier for me to take over.
But it's like they say like they need to like there's nothing here, and I'm just like,
It's
are
crazy.
you expanding your horizons? Are you meeting new people?
Yeah.
Are you networking with new things? Are you stuck in your old ways? Because I think it's so
Well,
easy to
so
get stuck.
it's funny you say that because for the longest time that was me. I thought that I had to get out of here, and I had the typical Midwestern dream, Midwest
Hmm.
person. I'm going to move to California and I'm going to do all this stuff. And then I visited California and like, this place is a dump and everything is expensive and it's not as cool. I'll come back and visit, but I never want to live here. And then I moved away for 3 or 4 years, down to just Louisville. But I was working enough to where I wasn't home enough, and every time I would come back, and it's well documented on my Facebook stories. Memories come up all the time, but I'm like, God, Covington is growing so much. I think I'm going to move back. And up until what I think I've been back now 3 or 4 years, the amount of growth in our city is incredible. And if you can't be motivated by what Covington's doing right now, I mean, it's insane. It enrages me when I know people who aren't from Covington are opening up businesses because that's where I really want to be. And I want to make an impact in that. And it's just like, I can't get over the amount of growth that's truly going on in our city. And it's even crazier now.
Hey,
I mean,
it's not gonna stop. I think that's
it's,
the thing is
no,
it's on the rise, and there's so many new businesses and so many new things coming to the area. I tell people all the time, I said Covington in like 5 to 10 years from now is not gonna be the same. It's going to be completely different.
no. Yeah,
It
yeah,
is
it's
going to
exciting
be.
though. It's really exciting, and it's so good for the city. And again, like, if people like us can really start being the catalyst for this change and be involved in that, which the past year with this business that I've had, I've been looking for studios and stuff like that, and I've had conversations with people in the city, and they truly want us to open stuff up, and they want to give us opportunities, but it's going to take people kind of like us to
Mhm.
really open those doors and help with that. And that's one of the biggest reasons that I do what I do and network the way that I do is because I want people from Covington to be successful, because just as much as I do, a lot of these people, they're great people, they're passionate, they're driven, but they just need the opportunity. And again,
Mhm.
some of these kids, they'll really see that and they'll say, "Hey, this person looks like me. I can do that." And it's true. It's truly inspiring in itself to just know that we can, just a little inkling, just a little bit, we can be inspirational to them.
100%. And I kind of want to lead into this next segment here because we kind of started talking about it a little bit. But before we do that, I do have to plug my phone in because it's about to die. So hold on.
You're good. You're good.
Sorry, people. Sorry, people. Entertain the people, Ryan.
I'll try. I can take pictures and do some videos for them. It'll be fine.
Oh snap! We back. Let me fix that real quick. Nah, I was like, it popped up on my thing. It said your phone's at 20%. I was like, oh shit. Nah, but you kind of were touching on a lot of things there and just talking about making a difference in the community and truly being in Covington. I think that's so inspirational. Talked about your studio, which kind of wants me to lead into that next segment we were just talking about, where it's just what is it that truly inspires you? But more importantly, what is it that ignites your why?
Man, so I am somebody who I want to leave my mark on this world knowing that I impacted just one person's life in a positive way. Um, so really, the studio, unfortunately, is in Cincinnati, so it's not in Covington, unfortunately. But I do live in Covington. Um, I tried really hard to find a creative space down there, but it just never really came to fruition. But one
And
of the
that's
biggest
okay.
reasons with this, we'll be back. Don't worry. I'm gonna have a whole I have a whole plan. Um, but basically, we're starting off at ground zero, the most affordable way, because quite honestly, photography and videography is not the cheapest thing to get into, as I'm sure you know, as from some of our conversations. Um, but really, what we're trying to do is create a space for multiple different kinds of creators, be that podcasting, be that video editing, be that videography, graphic design, all of that whole creative cloud
Hmm.
that it all falls under. We want to have that space so where we can all create together and really create opportunities through creating in that same sense. Um, it's funny because even in that creative space, when you think about what they say about athletes, athletes always want to be singers, singers want to be athletes type thing. And it's very true. And being an ex athlete, I think being in the creative space, it's so good for our mental health to be able to have that outlet. I mean, creating something is just there's not much more, and you being able to have a creative space to have these conversations that
Hmm.
enriches your brain, your mental health. Somebody who's an empath, kind of how I assume we both are. I get energy from helping people, and that's ultimately what my biggest why is on this planet is I just want to help as many people and impact as many people as I can, no matter what their walks of life are. I just that's really what I want my tombstone to say, or whatever my trademark is. I care about people so much, and I've always said I never want to get rich for money. I want to be rich to help people.
Hmm.
I spend a lot of time on social media, fortunately, but also unfortunately, and seeing these people who can help other people out monetarily is just, or just whatever, however I can help, and that's ultimately what I want to do with who I am, and what when my days are finally up, that's really what I want my mark to be.
Well, you do a damn good job at it.
I
I truly
appreciate
mean that. Just following your journey of like you coaching at Ludlow and seeing your business kind of come into fruition of everything that you're doing. It's truly amazing, and I think you have something special going on because I think it's important. And it's crazy how you're talking about being an ex athlete and creating. Never thought of it in that sense because for me, when I played sports, it was my safe place. It was a way for me to kind of just block out everything and nothing else mattered. I didn't think of anything. It was just me, the ball, and the playing surface I was on, whether that was a baseball
Mhm.
field, basketball court, or a soccer field. It didn't matter to me. But that's what I get now with this podcast is I get that same
Yeah,
feeling of being free and feeling happy and not caring about anything else that's going on. Even if it's for an hour, a day like I record, like that is peaceful for me and just creating content for the podcast. I love it. It's time consuming, very time
sure.
consuming, and I'm trying to be more like consistent. I think that's my biggest thing is consistency is so hard sometimes, especially when I have a full-time job on top of trying to do
Yes.
this. But I think it's just amazing how like you're creating this space for not only yourself but for other people. And I think that ties into just who you are is like you said, you love helping people, you love making a difference. And I think you're doing that every single day. So I don't want you to ever feel like you're not doing it because like you said, like even if you're just helping one person, you have. Like you keep doing that every single day and just you posting on social media, it's inspirational to other people on the outside looking in. And I think that's the biggest thing is sometimes we're our biggest critics in life. Like we can think like, oh, this isn't good enough. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. But in reality, you're where you're supposed to be right now. And where you're going
Hmm.
to go is going to happen when it's supposed to happen. I know
Yeah.
we want success to happen overnight and we want it now, 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 but it's those building blocks, having those failures, having those down moments to really grow and understand like, hey, this is this is how it's supposed to be.
Well, and that's really like one of the biggest reasons I try to post as real as I can, and I think that that's extremely important. Knowing that I have a lot of followers who are younger kids in high school, understanding that it's not always going to be, rainbows and sunny days and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Like a person like me has really bad days sometimes, and it's okay to have that. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I try to post the way that I do and really, you know, going through everything, it's okay. Like, it's okay to have one bad day and then the next day, it's just knowing that it's not always going to be easy and just being vulnerable. It took me
Sorry.
a really long time.
She usually never barks.
That is funny. I thought you screamed. I was like, my story's
No,
that crazy, huh?
Gabby.
Um,
It's
that was funny.
Gabby.
Uh, but yeah, just knowing like it's every day is going to be different, and just understanding to kind of roll with those punches is really well one of my biggest messages that I want to send to people.
Hey, and you were preaching and Gabby was agreeing. No,
Yeah,
you're
that's
preaching
my
to the choir. I think that's the biggest thing is just being transparent and being as open and honest as you can be. Because like you said, like it's not sunshine and rainbows and you're gonna have those bad days. I tell people all the time, your best every day is going to be different because one day you can probably give 100%, the next day you can probably give 30, but know that your 30% that day is your best because
hmm
that's all you can give and that's okay. And I tell people it's not easy. You're going to you're going to struggle, you're going to have those up and downs, but as long as you're getting up every day and trying your best, then you're doing your
hmm
best.
But as long as the realization. So I don't broadcast it a ton, but I try to do a lot for the homeless people and really understanding and talking to them. Um, it really puts things into perspective. And even on my worst days, I feel like there's obviously going to be somebody out there who's praying for that day that I'm having. So just
Mhm.
understanding that people have it worse. It's okay. It's a fine line, I feel like, because sometimes you feel guilty for not, you know what I'm saying? You have this thing where if you feel bad for yourself, that's not a good thing, but it's okay. But just understanding that, again, not every day is going to be a good day, and there's a lot of people that are really wanting to be in the position that you are, and it's okay to just be upset, but also know that it will get better eventually. I think that, man, the last 2 months that I've had have just been some of the craziest, mentally challenging, and really this year, which I feel like 23 has kind of punched all of us right in the face, but these last 2 months have just been some of the most trying times, and it's like, I took a step back from the photography and videography just because I had to make sure that my brain and mind and everything was in it. This is like my camera is literally like my outlet. I look through that lens and I'm in a different world, and I have to make sure that I can be as creative and really give my all into it because I'm somebody who doesn't like to just half-ass anything.
Mhm.
So, going through what I went through, just really put a hindrance on my creativity and just really where my headspace was. So, it's again, letting people know that it's okay to take a step back, and there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean you failed. It doesn't mean that, you can't move forward. You just got to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. And I really didn't learn that until much later on in life. Probably around 25 is when I really truly understood it. I just celebrated my 35th birthday, which makes me want to throw up. But the exponential growth that I had from 25 to now is just, it's crazy. I could go on so much about that, but we only have so much time.
No, I think you've kind of led me into my next topic. I feel like we've already been talking about mental health, but it's always important to have these conversations, especially as men. But my question for you is just, how are you taking care of yourself mentally?
um, Getting back to what I love doing and be passionate about. And this has been a journey for a very long time. And this is going to be a really tough conversation because it deals with a lot of stuff. But growing up, sports was my outlet. Sport was my safe place, very much like yours was. And the craziest thing about it is that, you get on the court, the field, whatever you're at, that you do leave everything at the door. So people don't really understand what's going on. And it took me a long time because being a man in sports, what do they always tell us to do is, you don't cry, you suck
Toughen
it
up.
up, you toughen up, all that stuff. And you don't really realize that until you understand what your emotions and how you feel really are. And you realize that you're playing, but you're suppressing that anger, that sadness, that happiness, whatever, and you're just playing. And you don't understand until you hit the real world just how toxic that is to your mental health. Um, I mean, I can remember just certain things that I went through, and truly what actually brought me to the culmination, there was certain events in my life, especially growing up with a single mother, where you weren't in some of the best situations, and that's kind of where we were at. One, just kind of being the man of the house at a very young age, or feeling like the man of the house, but then also kind of feeling like you're help raising your sisters, and then some other issues as far as some violence issues growing up that a lot of people don't understand about, um, that I dealt with, and then seeing certain things as well. It just really puts you through there. But the the caveat was sports. I always knew that I could go there and just kind of check in. But fast forward to when I didn't have that, and I'm just working and dealing with people and stress and all that. One night, I remember very vividly. I was in Louisville, and I was in my very first apartment on my own, and I had just had a terrible week at work. And I don't know what made me start just thinking about those instances that happened when I was growing up, but I just had a mental breakdown. It was insane. I had never understood. I very rarely cried growing up. Um, if we lost, I would cry. You know what I'm saying? It was only that kind of thing, which, looking back at it, was crazy. But I remember very vividly laying in the living room, and mind you, this apartment was like my baby. I was so
Hmm.
proud of it because I was doing it on my own, that whole thing. But for whatever reason, the stress got to me, and I had a mental breakdown, and I laid in my living room, and I boohoo cried like no other. And it was insane. But in the same breath, the next day, I had never felt more liberated in my entire life. And that was kind of like my aha moment of allowing myself to feel every emotion that I feel and it be okay with it, not sucking it up. And that's kind of where I had a breakthrough just with success in my life. And they talk a lot about having this what's emotional literacy or whatever, understanding your emotions and stuff.
Emotional
I've really,
intelligence.
there you go. I have it so much that I don't even know what the word is, but um, I just really got in tune with my feelings, and that really has helped me a lot in whatever. I just recently lost my grandma at the beginning of the month, and I lost my grandpa 2 or 3 years ago now, and it's just understanding again that not every day's good, and to just truly feel everything is so important. And I've gotten so comfortable with that. I'll cry. It doesn't matter. I don't care about it anymore. And it's just been a really, really good thing for me to be in tap with my feelings and really understand that it is okay. And that's what I'm vulnerable with my players. I'm vulnerable with my family. I'm vulnerable with my friends. I love that I've created this almost safe place for other people too. And I'm sure because you're the same way, people feel comfortable reaching out to you
Hmm.
and letting you know that they're not doing okay, but then also checking in on you. People understand, and I'm sure you get it too. It's like when you've been through stuff, sometimes you can fall back into your old habits of just kind of shelling up and being able to have people around you again, falling back on that. It's it's incredible, honestly. It's
Yes.
really good. And I really hope that this conversation between two men, can really have an impact on people watching this and understand it's okay.
Healing is a process. I tell people all the time is you're gonna have those days where everything's great, and sometimes you're gonna have a setback where it's just like this shit sucks. And I think it's
Yeah,
super important as you're talking is just being in tune with your emotions. I tell people our emotions are our friends. When you think about it, it's we have the power to feel what we need to feel, and we can kind of control those in a sense. And when you're emotionally intelligent, you understand when your emotions are being hijacked. Like I can tell in a situation where my emotions are starting to flare, I'm getting amped up, and I tell all of my players and even like the parents, I'm like, hey, I have a 24-hour policy. After this game, I need 24 hours because
hmm,
one, I hate having conversations off of pure emotions, like in the moment. Like, yes, sometimes they're necessary, sometimes they need to happen, and I can have those conversations. But I also know that sometimes in those moments, you can just say things you don't necessarily mean to say. And it's just like all of this, like amped up energy, whether it's anger, sadness, irritation, there's so many things that you can like think of, and I don't know if you know, but there's like 22 different emotions that you can feel, and a lot of people don't understand that because they just get so caught up on just feeling the baby emotions of like sadness, happiness, like the easy ones.
yeah,
But there's so much more to it, and I think it just shows a lot of strength in you to be able to recognize that and to be vulnerable with people, because as men we're always told not to be vulnerable because it's a weakness or you're being like a girl or things of that nature, but in reality it takes strength. I think it's inspiring to know that like you have those safe spaces where you can be vulnerable with people and open up to people, because everyone needs those kind of people in their life. And it's just inspiring because like just talking to you, it makes me happy because it's like I know you're doing what's right for you, and not only are you doing what's right for you, but you're guiding the way for other people and showing them that this is possible and it's okay. And I think we live in a society where people are so judgmental that we get so caught up on what everyone else thinks of us. And in reality, their opinions don't fucking matter. And I try to tell myself all the time is I don't have to please you. I don't have to do what you want to do. And it's been a journey, and I'm only 27, so I'm still kind of figuring it out. But I think that's life. And I think you attested to it is as an athlete, you just are so used to just suppressing everything and taking it out in your sport that you're not truly addressing what you need to address. So
ever,
it's
ever.
it's wild.
Well, and I mean, one thing that I do want to talk about too is the outlet of therapy, and you and I have had a conversation about that. That is definitely still a process to me. Um, but I wanted to thank you for reaching out to me and just letting me know what your experiences are, because again, that's super super important, and it's not talked about now. But a lot of professional athletes, they live at their therapist,
Mhm.
and people don't. It's not sexy to talk about, and I'm sure a lot of guys, still because they're in that whole world still. But it's super important, and it is a very important thing. And just the conversations that you have around it, even if it's just something like this, find somebody who you feel comfortable with, and really feel safe talking to about it, and just let it out. There's no reason to keep it in, that's
Right.
for sure.
I love therapy. Therapy,
It's good.
honestly, I'm telling you, like, it saved my life, because I
Yeah.
feel like there's so many things that happen in life that it's kind of when you have someone who just listens and helps you process what you're feeling, it helps tremendously. Like, I remember texting my therapist literally the day before, like, New Year's Eve, because I knew she was off, right? And I knew she was off, but, like, my mind was like, I always had therapy every 2 weeks. And I was like, I remember the last time she met, she told me she was gonna be off for 2 weeks. So I sit here and, like, I text her, I said, "Just to make sure, like, we don't have a session today, right?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm just I'm enjoying my break." And it's just like, I look forward to therapy. I look forward to my
Yeah.
Friday sessions, and, they're so healing for me. And I'm excited to see how, like, 2024 unfolds for me, because she and
Yeah.
I are working on a lot of inner childhood trauma and just things that happened in the past. And I'm excited to see where life goes. So we'll see.
Well, I think there's two things that I would pick up on that as well. Is one, that your routine is definitely good for your mental health, and that is a very specific thing that being a freelancer, I don't have at all. I don't have a schedule anymore. And again, that's one of the biggest struggles from being an ex-athlete too. Even though it was many, many years ago, I knew every single day I either had practice or weights in the morning, I had school, then I
Hmm.
had practice, I had games, I had all that. So it was pretty much just written out for me. And then when you basically, now when I was in retail, you still have set hours and you have a schedule, but now this freelance schedule, being able to have all this time and not really having a schedule, it definitely took a toll on me. And it got to the point where I was just like, oh my gosh, I have to have some kind of schedule. Um,
You create that
and
structure. And that's probably why you want a
yeah,
second job, is because you don't have that structure.
100%.
But it comes down to just taking a step back. You recognize you need this structure. So how can you create it? Right?
Yeah.
How can you create this structure? Whether it's, okay, I know Monday through Friday, because I do events in the evenings, right? Monday through Friday from maybe like 10 to 2, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to work on my business plan, and I'm going to work on what I need to do of, like, how are we going to grow in this aspect? How are we going to do this? Where's the money coming from for this? Make the structure yourself. I think that's the biggest thing about being your own boss, is you have that creative freedom to kind of do what you want to do. But it's so easy to be like, okay, like, it's here, like, we have it up and running, but now it's like, how can we continue to grow this? And if you can block off time throughout your day to give you that structure that you're looking for, it takes discipline. It's going to take discipline, but you have that power to know, like, I need this structure, so create it. Don't go looking
Yep.
for it elsewhere, right? You have something great going for you. So create the structure yourself.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to
It's
preach,
definitely,
but
oh, you're good. You're good. This is a good conversation. It's just, you know,
easier
we could
said than
probably
done.
well, and we could probably have an entirely new episode about entrepreneurship and all that too. Everybody thinks it's so sexy and so easy and just everybody can
Hey,
do it, but it
social media
really,
makes it look sexy, but there's so
oh,
many things behind closed doors that no one sees.
social media is a joke. We could have another conversation about that too, especially with the content creation, man. It's just, it's, it's good and bad. We'll go with that. It's
Hmm.
good and bad. And it's exactly, you can dictate exactly what social media does for you specifically, but a lot of people let it consume their lives. And it might seem like mine is for sure because I'm always on it, but understanding that that's just me trying to work.
That's how you grow your business, though. And I think that's the thing, is people are like, you're always on your phone. I'm like, I'm always doing something, whether it's creating something for this podcast or creating graphics for Woodward. I'm always
Mhm.
doing something. And it's not like I want to be on my phone. I don't. I would
Right.
prefer not to be, but sometimes I have to be, and it's frustrating.
Well, let's face it too. If you're not utilizing, we're in the information era. So if you're not utilizing that to just really flex, and it goes back to mental health. If you're not consistently learning and keeping your brain going, it's just not good for yourself. You stay stagnant. And that, I think that this will tie all back into just sometimes people in these small cities like Covington or some of these small boroughs in Cincinnati who never want to leave, it's because they became complacent sometime long ago because somebody told them they couldn't do something and they didn't have the drive to prove them wrong.
Hmm.
So, with that same breath, that's why seeing people and having these conversations again like us is so important for those kids at the age that they're at. And it doesn't have to be kids, it could be anybody who comes from that area. Just knowing that if you put the time and effort and really have that drive and just knowing that it is okay to fail. You're probably going to fail numerous times. I have failed a lot, and it's just having that will. Because at the end of the day, where we're from, that's really what we're about: is the drive to truly be successful by any means possible. It's funny because we say, we're from Covington, we're hustlers, blah blah blah, but it's the God honest truth that if you were born and raised in one of these cities, you're a different breed. You come from a different cloth, and you really are capable of doing whatever you want. I mean, I know drug dealers who have made a lot of money, and it wasn't just because they sat around and people came to them. It's because they put in the work. I'm not condoning being a drug dealer, but you can learn a lot from what a drug dealer's hustle really is.
100%. And I think the biggest thing is in order to succeed, you have to fail because
Yeah,
if you don't see that failure, you're never going to grow. And I tell people that all the time. You have to fail in order to succeed. That's the only way you're going to see growth in life. So I just wanted to one just say thank you, man. Just thank you for having this
yeah.
conversation. It's been super enjoyable, and I love chopping it up with people from Covington. So thank you for taking the time out of your day to hop on
It's
finally.
been a long time coming. We've been talking about it for long enough, so we finally got it done.
I was like, thank God. I'm kidding. I was like, finally, finally. No, I just knew it was always going to be a good conversation. And I'm excited to see your journey continue to unfold and flourish the way it has been. So, if anyone wants to continue a conversation with you about anything we discussed about today, what would be the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Probably the two best ways. Facebook is always a good place, but then my Instagram too. It's at, and I hate this, and I've thought about changing it a lot, but it is a brand now. At Champagne Lusty, kind of like Drake. That's been my go-to. But like I said, it's turned into a really cool brand, and I've been able to really interact with a lot of people on there. So the traditional Facebook, and then I'm working on a better website, so eventually that'll be up as well.
For sure, for sure. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm going to put all of Ryan's information in the description below. If you all happen to reach out to him, please just make sure you note on how you found him. It will be greatly appreciated. Do not forget to follow us on all social media platforms. It's at Ignite Your Y. That's INGYTE, not with an I. We are on every single platform, including Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, you name it, we are there. So make sure you give us a follow. And always remember, guys, find your purpose, ignite your why, and I'll holler at you guys later. Peace.